allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will open the meeting to anyone who wishes to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, subject to public hearing. Come on up. State your name for the.
Doug Sherrod. I'm here today wearing my Silver Beach Association hat. Only. And I have some comments that I'd like to read into the record, and for your convenience, I've got a copy for everyone so we can read along.
Thank you. So as I said, this is addressed to the Shelter Island Town Board. My name is Doug Sherrod, and my comments are being made today in my capacity as president of the Silver Beach Association. Today, I'm here to express the clear need for testing water wells in the island's two low-lying communities of Menantic and Silver Beach. Both are peninsular communities, and both are at great risk of saltwater intrusion into the water wells that provide drinking water to the residents. Silver Beach, the state of our freshwater aquifer, is perhaps the single most important issue facing our community. The neighborhood of Silver Beach is characterized by a relatively shallow aquifer, and as a result has a high vulnerability to drought and saltwater intrusion. With approximately 101 marine waterfront lots where 85 residences are located, Silver Beach is particularly vulnerable to this threat. The same can be said for the Menantic Peninsula community, which includes approximately 89 waterfront lots with 75 marine waterfront homes. The specter of saltwater intrusion into wells is a matter well worth measuring and monitoring. Back in 2014, the Silver Beach Association conducted an informal survey of its approximately 187 members, in which 18 homes reported poor well water quality, including objectionable levels of salt in drinking water. Another 30 homes reported moderate water quality, many of which required some form of water treatment. Now, 10 years on, additional residents have shared their concerns about well water quality. Accordingly, the Silver Beach Association Board considered steps to assess this matter further and, as a first step, proposed that the town of Shelter Island conduct a water testing program in Silver Beach at no charge to residents. Ideally, the information gained would help the town and our community assess the quality and quantity of our freshwater resources. Perhaps most importantly, it would equip us with new baseline data should challenges to our potable water resources emerge. Yet, according to an article in The Reporter last week, certain town board members suggested that well water testing in Menantic and Silver Beach be delayed until water quality matters in the center are first resolved. Since the water quality challenges in the two peninsular communities of Menantic and Silver Beach on one hand, and the center on the other, are unrelated, the position expressed by the town board members is confounding. It seems prudent, at the very least, to learn the extent of the shallow aquifer problem on Shelter Island as soon as possible. Recently, we've been canvassing door to door to expand SBA membership. And in those encounters, we have heard universal concerns from residents about water quality again and again. Surely this is no accident. Accordingly, the Silver Beach Association recommends that a program of water well testing for the Menantic and Silver Beach communities be conducted by the Suffolk County Health Department and coordinated by the town engineer as soon as practicable. Sincerely yours, Deb Sherry.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the physical audience that wishes to speak on the topic? I guess you come up to the podium and just clearly state your name for the audience.
I don't have the greatest hearing because of my commercial fishing, but what was the question?
Just state your name for the record.
Tom Icus,
And you're here to speak on
and,
the topic you wish to address?
25 Congdon Road, Shelter Island,
What topic would you like to speak on?
the recycling center.
You have the floor.
Okay, recently there was an incident at the recycling center that got a lot of attention. And the Commissioner of Public Works came before you and put out a proposition that the C&D and metal area of the recycling center be restricted, along with other measures to reduce the amount of recycling done at the recycling center. I'd like to remind you that when the recycling center was built as it is today, the town went into a contract with the state of New York to achieve 100% recycling. That was their contract. So far, the recycling done at the C&D and metal has, in my opinion, worked quite well over the years. Shelter Island's in a unique situation that we're relatively isolated. If somebody needs a 2x4, a piece of metal to finish off a project, rather than spend the time and expense to drive to Riverhead just for a small item, they'll often go to the recycling center, just find it right there, and go back home and finish off what they're trying to do. By preventing this, you're causing a hardship on many Shelter Islanders, having to spend a lot of time traveling to buy things they can just pick up locally. Plus you're going against the 100% recycling provision that you signed with the state of New York for receiving funds to build a recycling center. I have talked with about 60 people so far at the recycling center since the commissioner made his proposed changes. Not one of them was in favor of it. They all had recollections of the great things they found down there or how it's helped them in the past. And I think you ought to remember that. Realize that Shelter Island is isolated. It would cause a hardship on a lot of people. And since you're elected officials, people may remember that in the future. The second very important thing is that the contract you signed with the state of New York, when you got funding for that recycling center, that it was supposed to be 100% reuse. That was the goal. Through policy changes, that may be in breach of your contract with New York State and may prevent the town from getting future funding that's available or equipment that's available. Another point I'd like to make is I believe this incident was totally blown out of proportion. This is the first, I go there quite often. This is the first time there's ever been an incident like this. And the chain of blame goes around, starting with whoever let that 100-pound propane tank in, whoever threw it away, and obviously the person who tried to dismantle it. But the way to do it would have been on a one-to-one situation with the person who tried to dismantle it, for one thing. If you had a child in your school system who was very disruptive and a danger to other students, you would address it on a one-to-one instance with that student. You wouldn't go and suspend the entire Shelter Island student body for the actions of one person. And I think that's what the Commissioner of Public Works was trying to do here. Yeah, you could have an insurance worry, but things are going to happen all the time, regardless of what laws you pass or you try and change. Then you never know what's going to happen. Snowplow operators for the town have crashed into cars. Highway workers have been hit by cars while working. I mean, this is life. And the insurance company, of course, they could work with the town on rates, but the insurance company has no right to make the town breach its contract with New York State to achieve 100% recycling. So the two things are what's been a good thing for many, many people. And if you talked to or took a survey of people or just went down to the recycling and spoke to people, what they thought of that area, how it's helped them in the past, you'd realize how important it is to a lot of people. I think that's my overriding concern is you're going to deprive a lot of people of a great opportunity they've been afforded in the past. And of course, the second thing is remember that contract that you have with the state, because if you break it, state funding may not be available and you may not get any benefits in the future for the recycling center that the state would offer you. And I don't want to take any more of your time. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the physical audience that wishes to speak?
Oh, no, sorry, sir. I was talking to you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the Zoom audience? Yes?
Am I unmuted? Okay, thank you. Okay, I have two things to talk about today. The first is, they're both actually related to the comprehensive plan because they both actually are related to zoning, but I'm going to specify a little more. The first is causeway districts. These were created in 2011, 12 by a concerned group of citizens and environmentalists in the island. And I would just liken them to the nearshore overlay. These are both hugely environmental efforts to preserve certain areas of Shelter Island. Now, I'm not talking about what the asterisk wetlands draft is. I'm just saying that somehow the Causeway District appears to have been eliminated, except it still remains in zoning, chapter 133, as a special overlay district. I think if the town board focuses on the district purpose, you have an absolute poster child for preservation and building review restriction. It has everything that comes up in the litigation that you're dealing with right now all the time. I would also ask the question, how many lots on the two causeways are still available for building?
9? Well, 9 lots are privately
Nine?
owned. But
Nine are still, nine are still.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, there's only 3 private lots in the Causeway. 2 of them are, in essence, unbuildable. 1 is already developed. The rest are owned by the town, the county, and the homeowners association. So we're only talking about, for the Causeway District, 1 developed property.
And how many acres?
Is that 1 developed property?
Yes, my understanding is that there's still 10 acres that could be developed.
No. I talked to Reed this morning, and there is quite a large lot that's still privately owned, but it's 100% it's 100% wetlands.
So the one on the first causeway, that's in turnout?
yeah, I think we're gonna get into this when we discuss.
That's all.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so just,
We're gonna dive into this.
my point is that before we just do away with causeway districts with the stroke of a pen and no explanation, we at least understand and make available publicly what is left to build, that can be built on there. I mean, these are just a variety of reasons why this legislation
Yeah, we'll
should,
be getting into, we're just presenting it for the wetlands legislation for the first time today, and we do have questions, which
well,
is
no,
why I
I'm
was-
not talking about wetlands. I'm talking about causeway overlay districts. And you can,
Just said it over.
there is a difference. So I was just talking about a zoning district, which is very different
It's not
than
changing.
wetlands permitting procedures. Okay, that's point number 1. Okay, I'll try to be brief. Point number 2, once again about zoning. At the outset of discussion of the comprehensive plan, it was agreed by everyone that zoning is the keystone. Zoning is discussed all the time in court decisions. Comprehensive plans, conversation about zoning is discussed in court decisions. This is just a very important topic. And I just wanted to say that, there's other big legislation happening here that's all about zoning and really, really should wait until we have a comprehensive plan. We do update it, we do have a comprehensive plan. We have a comprehensive plan left from 1994. And I read through its vision statement, goals and objectives, and zoning implementation and rules sections last night. I also did some research on what other towns are doing in the way of zoning on limiting house sizes. In any event, the point is that the 1994 plan has been agreed by everyone, or not everyone, by many, that it really does need updating. So if you go from that premise, and if you go back and you read what we have right now, you will see that in order to have the necessary legal basis to go forward with a zoning proportionality law, you really do need an updated comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom? Okay, then we will move on to Community Housing Board. And we have Liz Hanley here to present.
Hi, so I'm Liz Hanley, the chair of the Community Housing Board. I am mostly going to be here talking today about giving you an update on the housing design that has been selected for the RFP that we're putting out. But I do have some general updates that I wanted to share with the board after that. Christina, do you mind setting up the? All right, cool. So just to kind of remind everyone, we're putting together an RFP for 10 units of rental housing And we have gone to the community to kind of get input on some of the designs that we thought would be a good choice. We're looking for 6 one-bedroom units on the South Ferry site and 2 two-bedrooms on both North Ferry site and Memory. And so I'm going to show you a pretty wide consensus. All right, cool. So just as a reminder, this is what the South Ferry site looks like. So this is behind the Historical Society. You'll see like the little wetlands, little area there. That front part is where there's parking for the farmers market. And this is just a very preliminary site design, kind of showing that we would put those units towards the back of the property with a bunch of green space there. We have just, actually, I think yesterday, this week, got the plans. So we'll be working with the architect to actually finalize this with our specific architectural renderings. So this is potentially what pretty close to what the South Ferry site is going to look like. Do you mind moving to the next one? Cool, so this is what they're gonna look like. So this is the design that we selected. It is a flexible design that can be configured many different ways. What you'll also see is there's a different configuration that we will be using for the 2-bedroom home, so you can kind of switch it around. And for the 1-bedroom units on South Ferry, you will have a 1-bedroom unit on the bottom and a 1-bedroom unit on the top. The bottom units will be ADA accessible. The top units will not be because there will be a staircase. But this is kind of what it will look like. Be like a little porch, and then I believe the staircase is around the back for the 1-bedroom, the 2 1-bedrooms. So it'll just look like 3 single-family homes. Right. Do you mind moving to the next one? Oh, we're not doing this. I'm just doing the next one. Okay, cool. So this is what the site plans look like for North Ferry and Van Waring Road. So again, a reminder, these are going to be the 2 bedrooms. So you'll see 2 bedrooms on each side. For the 69 North Ferry, you'll see that there is green space to the left, and we have preliminarily left space so that the access to Seasham's Woods will remain open to the public. And Van Waring Road, again, you'll kind of see them towards the, do you want to go back one? All right, cool. Thank you. So we'll have some green space right there in front, and that's potentially what it's going to look like. Again, we just got our plans, so we have forwarded those to the architect to get, actual, final kind of site drawings. But this is just how we have initially imagined it with talking to engineers. All right, and then for the next one, thank you so much. All right, oh, looks familiar. That's right, it's the same house design. So this one is configured as a 2-bedroom. So, we'll probably be kind of, changing the orientation of these homes just so that they each feel, individual and maybe the finishes on the sides. But we really like these plans, and we got some great feedback from the public on these ones as well. So I was really happy to say that these were selected. We have been in contact with the architects. They had created, I believe they're out of Connecticut, it's Union Architects. They've actually created these plans to be used for affordable housing, and they're really excited that we've selected them and have offered to do some of the site design for us. So they're really just excited to see these built. So we are too. So this is just kind of where we've left it. These are the designs that we've selected, and this allows us to move forward with the RFP, which I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of an update on. So now that we have that, we are kind of moving forward with kind of figuring out our zoning and getting all that sorted out. We've got surveys in the mix. So we have South Ferry already has its survey done, and we have, I think, orders in for North Ferry and Van Marine Road. So we should see those in the next couple weeks. You know, you never know how it goes in the summer. So that's how we're progressing there. And then we're excited to be working with our zoning lawyer to get that figured out, to get our zoning all sorted, going in front of ZBA. So that will be our next step on the zoning side. The other kind of part of that is now that we have the design selected, we can really move forward with our RFP, which we're excited to get out. We've been meeting with our lawyer, and thank you to Ben and Amber for making time with Bill and I to kind of go through some of the items. We're pretty close. We're working on one last revision with our lawyer for the RFP, and my hope is by the time we have the next community housing board, we'll be able to share the draft that we have publicly, hoping to get it on the website so that everybody can kind of, I feel like it's getting close enough that we can really share it with folks. Some of the things that we've been working on are considering things, the point system for how we evaluate folks that are going to make bids. So the community housing board had a spirited discussion, trying to think about how to weigh things, and thinking about there's a bunch of thorny questions, right? So I know we talked about some of them, thinking about what happens, how do you manage monitoring people's income? What happens if they earn more one year, and when do they move out, and how do you do that? So we have some great ideas. I brought those back to the lawyer just to kind of put something forward. Also, issues in thinking about the buyback, right? So, do we look at it every 10 years if the developer who does this wants out? How do we determine how to buy them out and on what schedule? So starting to put together those kinds of thoughts for the negotiations that will come once we kind of have a final bidder. Those will not be in the RFP, but will be things that we really need to think about as a town as we start to put together the lease. As a reminder, the town will keep ownership of the land, and the developer will just kind of own the leasehold improvements on top. So it's a little bit of an interesting deal, but so just want to make sure that our legal stuff is tight. The other thing that I think is really important to talk about is thinking about eligibility. So we have, the public has given us a lot of feedback on this. There's been a lot of litigation, quite honestly, in this particular space all over the state. So it has really been a challenge, and we've been so grateful for the support of our housing lawyer in thinking about how to manage this. So just as a reminder that we are, regardless of whether we take federal, state, county money, we are required to follow fair housing guidelines. Even if we don't take a dime from anyone, we have to comply with fair housing laws. And there has been some pretty stringent enforcement of that happening nationwide and specifically in New York, and trying to be sensitive to both the community's expressed concerns and not trying to get the town sued for something that we know is going to go against fair housing has been the middle road that we've been kind of thinking about. So, what the community has come forward and said is, hey, we would really like these restricted to people that specifically live and work in Shelter Island. What we have learned through our housing lawyer is we cannot restrict it to people who already live here on Shelter Island. There's no way that will ever pass fair housing. So we are working with our lawyer to figure out if we could have folks that potentially work or volunteer here on Shelter Island to pass that strict scrutiny test. I will tell you, she's running the math. It's not looking good. So I do want to put forth, and I know I've had conversations with you all, I think individually maybe at this point, that an option that we might be considering is not being able to restrict it to live and work, but to have it open. I think that first of all, we must we have to comply with fair housing. I do think that there is the fact that it is a little bit self-selecting. We're a pretty inconvenient place to be if you're not headed here. And I think, so this is just something that we really need to think about. I think that it is better to consider this path and kind of what it would mean. The other option, of course, is to not do any of this. And I don't think that that is a legitimate path. I mean, it is a legitimate path. I don't think that that's advisable to just kind of, to not walk down this, to not look at this at all, and to walk away from this project. So I do want to just kind of bring that to you. I know that this is something that we've really wrestled with. It's something that we'll be talking about in the community housing board meetings. But just to, like I said, to just really put out there just so that it's on everybody's radar. We are doing our due diligence to see where we can have the community's express wishes, see if there's any intersection with what we are able to do and comply with fair housing law. So just getting that out there. I do have 2 other quick updates. I'll try to keep this brief. Our ADU +1 program has been closed because we had too many applicants. I didn't have too many applicants, but we definitely overwhelmed the system. So Shelter Islands applications have reopened. We currently have 28 slots. We have 6 are in through zoning, ready to 2 have broken ground. So we've got another 4 right behind it. And then another 20 behind them in kind of various states of, income verification and meeting with the architect, stuff like that. The applications are, like I said, are now back open. I did want to let anyone know, I did convince them to open Shelter Islands first because we have a lot of interest. So anybody going to the CDC Allies website will see that you have to fill out an interest form and then they will send you the application because we're the only ones open. So just to, I know that's there's a little bit of a 2-step, but that was the way that we were able to get through that. Really excited about it. And I should have some more exciting news to share next month about that. And then the last thing that I wanted to share was I had talked to the supervisor and council member who we met with yesterday about thinking about getting Shelter Island to pass a resolution to become a pro-housing community. We can either become a pro-housing community by increasing our housing stock by, I think it's 1%. I don't think we're gonna quite make that, or we can do it by resolution. Seems like the easiest way. And the reason for that and why I am encouraging that is it will put us in the mix to be at the head of the line for New York State funding, potentially, maybe for this RFP project that we're doing, but for future housing plans that we might do. So I think no matter what, it's going to help us. So I really appreciate you guys being open to that.
I just have one point. On the preference, how you said, the Fair Housing Act.
Yeah.
Throws a wrench into things. I know Southall, you may want to have your attorney look into first responders might be able to get preference. So you might want to have your attorney look into that.
We actually, that was one of the things that that's great. Thank you for that. One of the things that we had kind of talked about in one of the tests that she's doing is for people that work here or volunteer specifically for our first responders. So that is the strict scrutiny test that she's running right now.
Yeah, I think that might be able to survive it.
Yeah.
Particularly on the side.
Yeah. So we're crunching the numbers because those are the folks we'd like to serve too. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments, feelings?
I did received the plans that you sent me, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I forwarded them to the ETIP group so that they can do a re-up analysis for any potential green energy add-ons to any of the housing that we do,
Great.
to see if it would be worth the initial upfront expense in the long run. So they're gonna do that for us.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you kind of putting that forth. I know we don't have it in our immediate budget to do that, but it is definitely a priority.
Yeah, well, they're also helping us get enough information to be able to easily apply for grants, and it kind of tees us up for grants. So it might be one of those things where we could combine grants with some form
Yeah.
of green energy programming for the island. So
Yeah,
it could get an add-on later or something.
I mean, I love that. I love that for these units. Cool. Awesome. Well, we should have, like I said, we should have a revision of the RFP hopefully by the next community housing board. So I hope to be sharing that publicly and getting those final revisions, because we, like, my personal goal, Bill says he wants to have it out by September, but I'm more ambitious. I want to have it out sooner. So I'm definitely working on that. So I can't wait to share it with you and get your guys' final notes.
And I pulled a draft resolution for pro-housing community, so I'll try and get that on the agenda for next week. So you all can take a look at that and some of the implications of what that means.
Thanks so much. I really
Does
appreciate it.
anyone in the public have any questions?
Oh,
Hi, I'm Howard Johansson from the CAC. I recall that South Ferry site was what PSEG set aside for our emergency generation if we lose a feeder. We have one new feeder coming from the north, we have a spare conduit coming from the north. The south feeder has never been updated. I'm wondering what the status of that is with your town.
I can kind of speak to that. Yeah, I was gonna say. So we've been looking into that more with the whole ETIP grant that we're working on. And most of the infrastructure there has been removed. So there is no quick hookup for an island-wide generator or anything like that. So none of that infrastructure exists there.
Have you planned on another location in case we lose a feeder? So I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else in the physical audience has any questions? In the Zoom audience? Liz, thank you. Peter?
Thank
The rest of the
Thank
you,
committee.
so
Liz.
much.
Thank you. Working hard and we appreciate it. Okay, the next agenda item just is we had public hearings yesterday on sidewalks, filming, and traffic changes in the Heights. We go in order here, so sidewalks. We closed that public hearing yesterday. We didn't have anyone speak on it, so we can move this to passing it at the next, on July 15th.
Absolutely.
For the filming, same
Same
thing.
thing.
We didn't have anybody, so put that on for July 15th. And the last one was the vehicles and traffic changes. Yeah, crosswalks and Heights, and we only had the Heights property owners board who spoke in favor of it, so that's fine. We'll put it on for July 15th. Okay, just closing those out. The next, we do have to read on, okay, good. Wetlands, we have draft legislation. Both Albert and Meg were on that subcommittee, so I don't know whether or not you two want to take lead or Stephen wants to take lead and just talk about what's in here. It's changing from.
Why don't you take the lead, Steve?
I can do it. I'll go through it and Stephen can fill in any gaps. All right, so we started by, when we looked at this, we had a list of things that had been problematic in the past. So some of those were insufficient definitions, which we've addressed and updated in this code. Looking at it, we realized that parts of the chart conflicted with parts of the text, and the chart that kind of let you know when a permit was required, when a permit was not required, wasn't always very clear. So we also realized that there's a lot in here specifically for the Causeway Overlay District. And when we analyzed it, we realized there were really no buildable lots left in that district because the CPF has purchased some of them are 100% wetlands. There's a whole lot to that. So we took some of the aspects of the Causeway District overlay requirements and built them into the overall wetlands code. So we didn't just drop it off. We picked the pertinent parts and applied it to every wetlands. So that's just like a really.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be the wild, wild west in the causeway.
Right.
They're still gonna have to comply with the wetlands regulations.
And it doesn't impact the Causeway District in the zoning code 133 that still exists as a zoning district. It's just that it's not treated differently in the wetlands code. We've incorporated it into all wetlands properties. So some of the definitions that we kind of either added or clarified, they're all underlined in the text, but we added a few things like bluff, so it was clear. Then the regulated area is one that people will want to look at. We did eliminate the buffer zone, which was the adjacent regulated area. That's been pulled out. And the regulated area does go to 100 feet. And then there's no adjacent regulated area anymore. So that has been eliminated. So it's a 100-foot wetlands line, and that's the trigger.
And basically, the vegetative buffer got absorbed into the regulated area.
Right.
So it's one and the same.
And then we went on to clarify the chart of activities. So previously, there were 3 different columns. There was a new structure on a lot with the bulkhead, new structure on a lot without a bulkhead, and Causeway District. And then down the side, there were all these activities. So now we've changed it. So it's really just a list of activities. And then whether there's a permit required, no permit required, or the activity is not allowed. In the previous draft, there was this clause that said no activity prohibited, it was not allowed. However, applications may be processed in consideration of differences between town law and DEC law if all other remedies have been exhausted and DEC approval is obtained or letter of non-jurisdiction is applicable. But that got kind of confusing, and then there are instances where people were stuck in situations like their entire property is within 100 feet of the wetlands barrier, wetlands line, and there was no way for them to appeal to the wetlands for review of something that they needed done. So what we've done is put in a waiver clause at the very end of the code for people who are in situations where there is a hardship of some kind. So the town board, upon request of an applicant for a permit, may waive any requirement hereunder if it finds that the applicant suffers an unnecessary hardship, the submission of any information required by the provisions of 129-4. So this would help in situations like the wetlands application we received, where the home is in an area where there is no physical way to put an upgraded sanitary system outside of that 100-foot wetlands buffer, or even the 75-foot wetlands buffer. Prior to that, the only way that the application could even be reviewed was using this awkward definition of no. So it allows for a legitimate waiver request for something like that.
Yeah, so in the previous iteration of the chart, no, and also this one, no equals activities prohibited. So that regulated activity was prohibited, but it gave this sort of amorphous out. And it really was meant at the time, I'm assuming, that, you know, you get DEC approval for X, you come in and the town, the wetlands board is only giving you Y. They will look at the DEC approval and try to massage it where it be closer to the DEC approval, which again, DEC is very generous, so I don't think you should have that as the arbiter of when something that's, you know, 9 times out of 10 completely prohibited to be something that you can sort of change. So that's why we went into this blanket waiver for any provision within the wetlands code. But you have to show undue hardship to the town board.
Why is the town board considered the best arbiter?
Because we're the ones in charge of the
You just
wetland
took over
review.
wetlands.
We just took back wetlands, it's on you.
No, but it would still go through the process where planning board and CAC would chime in. So it's not just you alone.
No.
Well, just ZBA only has jurisdiction over the zoning code. This is not in the zoning code, so they have no jurisdiction over this.
The other thing, so then after the chart, which we did add in reconstruction with expansion upward or downward within a footprint. So that's if someone's gonna put in a basement area or, you know, machine room or something. So that's a trigger for a permit required. If you're gonna fill or regrade and within that zone, you need a permit. And then for demolition, there's a clause where it's no permit required if you get administrative approval from the building department, because demolition is pretty clear. If you're just removing something from the space, it's very standard protocol on how you protect from runoff and how you handle demolition.
Reed, would you be able to chime in on that? What do you require if someone wants, say, has a house and they come into you and I want to demo it? Do you issue a demo permit or do you issue a building permit for the demolition?
I'm sorry, run that by. I was just frantically fiddling with my unmute. What was the question again?
No. So if I want to come in and demo my house, do you issue a demo permit or a building permit? Like, how do you keep track of the demo and if it's done in a way that's safe?
We issue a demolition permit for a house for a number of reasons. Part of it is just to keep track of asbestos regulations. But yeah, we would issue a demolition permit for any significant structure. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to change that language instead of upon building department administrative approval, upon the procurement of a demolition permit.
Okay. Sometimes it's done. Sometimes demolition permit is rolled into the new
Building
construction. In fact, very often. But sometimes they want to get started on something before it's approved. So they would then get a demolition permit separately.
Okay.
They got to jump on it.
What language are you changing? Demolition upon building department administrative approval.
Instead of that gobbledygook of building department administrative approval, just be specific, and demolition upon procurement of a demolition permit.
The next thing we did there was we specified a boardwalk not part of a dock and a walkway being a permeable structure or surface. And then the fill and regrading. So then go to 29-4, general guidelines.
Sorry. Just before we jump on, I talked to you about this morning. There's a redundancy here for an existing structure on a lot with a bulkhead and an existing structure on a lot without a bulkhead. So we're going to just take out existing structure on a lot with bulkhead and just call it existing structure on a lot. And because it's completely redundant, the prohibitions or approvals on the different regulated activities. So we'll take a significant amount out of this chart and make it cleaner and more user-friendly.
And then the next thing we did was in 129-4, general guidelines to activities within the regulated area. We added that the planting, seeding, and cultivating or maintaining of fertilizer-dependent vegetation is prohibited within the regulated area. So that's a new addition there. And that the use of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, or other pollutants are also prohibited. Then we discussed undisturbed areas within the regulated area have to remain natural in their natural state, except if you get a certified survey of the site plan showing the vegetation and what changes are going to be made. Then there's a list of things that you can do. And those are things that were already allowed in the code. This is just giving us a way to check to see if they were done accurately or within the guidelines of the code.
Correct. So, like, if you want to remove a dead tree, diseased tree or something like that, before you do it within the undisturbed area, you need to have a survey showing the existing vegetation in that area, or have the wetlands officer come out and, confirm that that's a tree that can be removed. Because, again, the non-disturbance area is just that. You can't be touching anything. Except for, again, removal of a dead tree, obnoxious vegetation, which is defined, the 5-foot wide walking path. You could do some limb trimming and shrub trimming. But again, that is all going to be done either in connection with the certified survey that shows the vegetation in that area, or having the wetlands officer confirm.
And then nothing really changes from the original until you get to 29-4.5 permit procedure. And then we have that the applications shall include at a minimum the following, and it's a list of all the things that were previously requested. A couple additions here is that instead of the short form EAF, it requires a long form EAF for things that are not type 2 actions. And then it also eliminates items 6, 7, and 8. And some of those things can be added into the application, but they don't need to be in the code necessarily. And then when it comes to how many numbers of copies we want of everything, we pull that out of the code exactly on the application. It doesn't have to be part of the legislation, it can be policy. And it's easier to adjust it based on changing demographics in the town. And then the other thing that we added here was that the town board will only accept wetlands permit applications if they already have the requisite authorization from the DEC or Department of Health when applicable. So depending on what that process is, you may or may not need those things. The next part, 129-41, which was the causeway wetlands permit regulations, has been eliminated because we kind of incorporated the stricter guidelines for that into the total code. So it applies to everything instead of just causeway district.
And also, like we said earlier, the Causeway District has 3 private lots, arguably 4, because one's in ownership of a homeowners association. But 2 out of the 3 are clearly unbuildable. 1 is already developed. And the only potentially concerning one would be the one that's owned by the homeowners association. But that would have to go through the similar process to be developed as any other wetlands permit, and would also have the now new 100-foot setback. And also they would have to go through a subdivision process if they wanted to put more than one home over there. So, and all of this is also located in a floodplain, so it'll all be type 1 review environmentally anyway, so you have that plopped on top of it. So it makes sense, and it's good governance to take out 7 pages of code if we only have potentially 1 lot that can be.
So then the section 29-5, which is now 29-6, criteria for permit issuance pretty much stays the same. The process hasn't changed much. And then 29-51, which was criteria for causeway wetlands permit issuance, has been eliminated because we took that whole chunk out. And then finally, it's just the fees and that waiver clause. With the waiver clause, that last sentence, if it finds it to be unnecessary, I don't understand why it's there.
Yeah, that again should be removed.
Okay. Because I read that twice, I'm like, I
Yeah,
That's
that was
missing a carryover or something.
yeah, it was original to the code and that'll be removed.
That is what we have. So,
Just one other thing I wanted to add, Article 3, we moved the definitional section to the front to be consistent with the rest of the code, and that's usually how things are done. And then I want to move applicability, which is 129.9, to the beginning as well, right after the after the definitional section. Just which properties this code applies to. It should be at the beginning of the chapter. And then nothing else has changed.
129. Mine stops at 129.
we don't have 129.9 in this document.
Correct.
Right. That was the
So-
old one. The old one had.
The old one has Article 3, so you didn't have that because there wasn't much change. These are things that I just wanted to do now, when I looked at it. So you'll have a fully conforming copy for the next time we look at it. I'm just throwing that out there, that's what I want to do to, again, just make it cleaner.
Some of the biggest changes really take place in the definition section. So when you review the code, definitely pay attention to the new definitions, the additions and some of the changes that were made there. It helps clarify some of the issues we've had in the past. Yeah, one of the things I noticed that was coming out of the regulated activity was dredging. And I don't think we are properly addressing it here, so I think it does need to go into the table. Because if you look at Code Section 53, there is 53-18 talks about dredging, and it refers you to 129. But then nowhere in here do I see dredging addressed.
It's not in the chart anymore.
Yeah, so I think that needs to go back in.
Yep.
And then also, I wasn't sure about G, driving, piling, replacing the instruction, whether or not changing the other flow of water. I didn't see that covered here or in the dock code per se.
It's like pilings of dogs.
Yeah, so since we're working on the dock code, we may want to make sure that that gets put into the chapter 53 then.
Yeah, I feel like that's a chapter 53 issue.
Also on the fourth page, after we've got town waters defined, then we get rid of unregulated activity and vegetative buffer, but then there's this floating definition, an area 100 feet in length and width immediately landward. It's kind of like out there without saying what it's defining.
Yeah, that is the regulated area. So it just didn't
It
get
just needs to get moved up. The things that I have, and this was just my first pass, I'd like to go through it more. Fill and regrading. If you're going to combine the new structures and existing structures with bulkheads and without bulkheads, we had fill and regrading an existing structure on a lot without bulkhead, and then we have it in its own, like sort of in the everything section, where it says fill and regrading is no, it's prohibited. But then if you looked at existing structure on lot without bulkhead, permits required. So we've had some inconsistency there. So what was the intention?
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah, I think it should be permit required.
you want to speak? Do you have anything to do with the fill or dredging being?
Dredging is typically part of 153. Bulkhead gets replaced.
Yeah, right now it's referencing this code section, so we have to figure out where it belongs.
I
and-
think it belongs, I think pull it out, have it independently and make it permit required, because whether it's a new construction, existing construction, or even just their lawn is washing out and they want to regrade it, or they want to I don't know, there's a million
That means
things.
someone wants to update the dock.
Just so that way the Zoom audience and state your name.
Ian McDonald, Chairman of the Planning Board. The one question I would have to that is if someone, I think the code's been trying to keep the two separate for a long time. If someone goes to put in a dock or rebuild their dock or backfill their dock because of washout, Do they have to also then come to a wetlands code? I think the town has always been wetlands permit, because I think the town's always been trying to say dock issues remain in the dock chapter, and they should not be in wetlands. That's how I understood how it was being addressed in the past.
I think that's a good point. When I look at it, I think of fill or regrading in coordination with something happening in upland.
Yeah.
I think of any fill or grading having to do with the installation of a dock or a bulkhead going with the waterways.
If it is with a foundation or something
Right.
like that, then clearly
So-
that would be part of.
Yeah, maybe we can make that
Wetland
distinction. Mhm. If it's fill or grading,
Bulkhead only.
bulkhead or dock
Yeah.
related versus,
We ran into that previously too with the boardwalk, as if it's part of the dock structure, if it's independent, and that's why we had to
that's why we separated.
separate it.
So like we have boardwalk and a parenthetical, not part of a dock, so we can do fill, not part of a dock, or,
Or bulkhead,
okay.
yeah. Amber, you're on by Zoom. When someone's applying for a dredging permit or bulkhead, it's all, which section is it sort of related to?
It's waterways. So we have bulkhead, no permit required.
We have dock, no permit required from wetlands, but that you'd have to go to the
WMHC.
WMAC code for that. So like 53. And then, so boardwalk, if it's not part of a dock, then it goes to wetlands and it needs a permit. If it's a walkway and it's just in the ground, you're just walking along stones or whatever, then it's no permit required. But I think what we should do here is fill regrading in parentheses, not part of a dock or bulkhead.
Yeah, so
And that would be dependent upon the dock bulkhead code.
we sort of got, I think the subcommittee has to go back to, because it's somewhat inconsistent, that we have dock, bulkhead, no permit required on the list, and then we have a separate section that talks about the construction of a dock, 129(4)(c), where it says construction of a dock, bulkhead, and boardwalk does not require a wetlands permit, so that would be consistent with the chart, so long as the applicant has obtained a permit pursuant to 53, and this is where it gets a little dicey. Project does not require any disturbance, removal, or filling of the wetlands or produce any negative impact on the wetlands. That's so general.
Yeah.
You could say that anytime you're building a dock or a bulkhead, you're going to disturb the wetlands to some degree. And then it says no new bulkheads will be allowed unless the applicant can demonstrate blah, blah, blah. So again, it's talking to,
That just needs to
Okay.
come out. That should be in chapter 50.
so I think, because I am going to recommend, and it's up to the town board, of course, that we go back. Maybe, I don't know if Supervisor, you want to have another bite at it before we go back to the subcommittee, or go back to the subcommittee after this, and then.
It's up to, I mean, I'm trying to go through the points that I came up with on the first pass. I don't know whether or not.
Right.
I mean, I have a,
Comments and go back to the subcommittee and then look at it again.
Yeah, but do our comments today or put it on for another work session and then send it back? Okay, I mean, I'm ready, I did the first pass, I, want to look at it a little bit more and I can always pass them on to.
I have a listing of suggestions that I'd like to make, but we can wait until the next time.
Well, no, do them now if you have.
Yeah, and then we can send it back.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like the construction to take place within the existing foundation, not the footprint. I think the footprint is going to allow larger construction. If somebody has a deck or a sunroom without a foundation under it, that's going to enlarge a structure. And the whole idea of this is to protect the wetlands. So we should be, I think, more restrictive.
I mean, the committee heard you and disagreed with you because there are some old homes that don't have legitimate foundations. You have some that are still on Locust Post, you have other things, so we felt that the footprint was.
Within the body of the house, not the deck or sunroom or porch, within the main body of the house.
Yeah.
That's all.
Interesting.
If I may, I think we said Covered porches, fine. Open decks, no.
I think if we stick within the foundation or the main body of the house, it's definitive, not interpretive.
Covered porch part of the main body of the house?
Well, we have to make that definition or not. Is your fear that if there's a covered porch that has some foundations on locust posts, and then someone goes to add a second floor and builds out the second floor out onto that porch?
Or
Is that what you're trying to?
they dig underneath that covered porch. That's
That's it,
within the
that's
wetland,
down.
the
Right,
wetland
that's
boundary. You know,
I'm just trying to understand where you're trying to.
I know, I'm over here on being more protective, that's all. I mean, if we're doing
someone
this,
already has a covered porch and it's in that area, there's no significant difference to put a legitimate foundation underneath it. If it starts to subside or if it's falling off the side of your house,
why do we
it
want to
doesn't
be,
make a difference.
why do we
if you
want to
go
be
and put-
digging in the wetlands?
It's a buffer, not the wetland.
Well, I mean, it's also dependent on the property. You know, you have to look at the property and figure out exactly what type of intrusion you're dealing with. What's the elevation of the property? How close are you to groundwater? How close are you to that 100-foot line? There's a lot that you have to take into account with each application.
Okay, let me just go through my list and then we can continue.
Hey, can I just go back for a second? Because what I wrote down is, you want to maintain the existing footprint.
Not footprint.
Not
Oh, not
footprint,
footprint, changing
Not
the
footprint.
foundation. Okay,
Foundation.
okay. Got it. Okay, keep going, thanks.
or if there's locust posts within the main body of the house as it currently is.
What part of the code is that?
Would be in the chart on the list.
Yeah, and the-
Right, in the chart. Thank you.
The permit procedure says a wetlands boundary to be delineated within 5 years. I would like to see that lessen, 5 years. With the amount of sea level rise we're experiencing and pressure in certain areas, I'd rather see it within less than 5 years.
3,
What,
3, 2.
2 years? I don't,
section is that in?
129.5.1, A1, 129.5A1.
I think that's worth looking at what other towns require.
Yeah, the DEC requires 5 years.
It's 5 years.
Well, let's look at other towns.
DEC also has 75 foot, as you always harp on, Ian.
The DMC gets changed.
Just, could you come on, I don't think anyone in Zoom can hear you, Howard. Sorry.
Also, on,
Howard just had something.
oh,
I
sorry.
just, DEC has not changed anything in the last 25 years, or a century. I think now's the time to start looking at these changes and, take into account what we're doing, what the committee is doing, is very, very good. But we have small little preferences that I think we're still going to address it.
You can't close the door. No,
Yeah, you have
it's
to
gonna be
leave
a
it
closed
open.
meeting.
It's a public meeting.
People can open the door, but people, you have to.
No, leave it open.
Have to leave it.
That'll be-
It has to be open, yeah.
So we're going to have another meeting, the committee, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
because I have a lot of little comments. I just got the report yesterday in the afternoon, so.
Yeah, we're gonna do all of our comments today and then
Very
send it
good.
back to the subcommittee.
Thank
So, yes. Okay, Albert?
I think in our permit procedure, we should include the $500,000 insurance liability. Or wetland.
Yeah, was that just gonna get moved to the instructions on the application?
No, there was some reason the committee wanted it out. Did you?
It's not, we checked with the insurance, town insurance provider, they do not require it. So it's just not a step, but we can certainly keep it in, but it just doesn't. Other towns don't require it, some do, some don't. It's just,
I think we should be one that requires it, that's all, it's my opinion.
This is insurance, not a performance.
It's live.
Certificate of insurance.
Insurance, sir.
Thomas. Robert, just to go back to your first point, I'm just trying to understand. So if there was a covered porch and you said they can't rebuild that if they're
If it's encroaching into the wetlands,
Right.
it's 100 feet,
There's a
100 feet.
If there's a full foundation under that, it's like it's become a sunroom or heated space. Okay. But otherwise, no, if it's on locust posts or just knee wall, no, there isn't a full foundation under that structure. So just whatever the foundation, the full foundation exists.
This is a concern that we don't want to dig in the wetlands, but if they can rebuild it with locust posts again, or with a knee wall or some other less intrusive downward support system, is that okay?
I don't know, then we're getting into,
What about,
I'm just trying to figure out where we are.
Albert, what about a structure like the Shelter on Yacht Club, which is all on posts, there is no foundation, would that be allowed to be rebuilt?
is this a town board work session? Or is
Yeah,
this,
he's on the committee.
We asked the
I know,
subcommittee to
okay,
come in,
all right.
yeah, just so we could get full.
what do you take an excessive example, Ian? What does that prove?
There are many examples with covered porches that people want to enclose that are on posts.
My concern is that
It
there's
has
gonna
a
be,
roof, it has a floor, it's basically a room, they just want to enclose it, heat it with mechanical systems underneath. You have to have a crawl space underneath to heat it. You can't run ducts through the environment, so allowing someone to enclose their porch, or you're saying no more than 100 feet, can anyone do that? Well, I'm asking.
I think you know the answer.
You could use the other.
My position.
In Florida,
You can,
you don't need ducts for.
But you have to insulate, you have to
Well, you do have this,
load,
yeah,
it's,
mostly above. But,
All right, I think we can vet it in the subcommittee and then bring it back to the
In-
town board.
Yeah. Did you have anything else, Albert? Did you have anything more?
no, I do, but I can wait. We can
No,
go through them.
do it
No,
now.
no,
Do it
I'd rather not do it now. Thank you.
Why? When are you gonna do it then? Are you just gonna wait and do it at the subcommittee or next week and then we'll keep the process
Do
going?
it at the subcommittee.
Okay.
question, I mean, Stephen.
Yeah.
In the waiver section, unnecessary hardship. There must be some parameters out there that we can put around unnecessary hardships.
Yeah, we can-
Would be appropriate in this
Yes.
situation?
Yeah, sure.
This
Getting like,
can bother me.
like some guideposts, yes.
Okay, great. And Albert, the reason I'm asking these questions is because I agree with you. I don't think we should be digging in the wetlands. And I don't think we should be building on top of porches to expand the house. So I'm just trying to figure out where we are.
That's what I'm trying to be protective against.
And so am I. That's the only reason why I'm asking the questions. But if you have a covered porch and the house burns down and you want to rebuild it, should you be able to rebuild that covered porch on locust posts or with knee walls? Not with a full foundation. And certainly not build above it and expand the second floor over that porch.
Yeah, I
Absolutely not. So, but we'll talk about some more.
In 129-4, H, I think it's also referenced a little later, just the wetlands permit exemption for new construction less than or equal to 100 square feet. I'd like to document the procedure that we put in place this year. That you still have to present it formally to the town board and just get a notation resolution that 100 square foot exemption applies and that's being
To
utilized.
track it, yeah.
Yeah, so that we better track it.
Okay. We don't really have a procedure for that. We sort of put planning board in charge of it, but now that we're doing wetlands, are we in charge of
Yes.
tracking the 100 square foot exemption?
Yes, because we'll do a resolution that documents it and goes into the file.
Okay, who is doing the research on that?
Well, we'll work with the building.
Yes. That was all that I had. That's all that I had.
Oh, just,
I just, once, we sent this out, the planning board spent a lot of time reviewing the code. We actually did that. Since it was being presented as 100-foot without scientific basis, it was just a feel-good number. We did a deep dive into research on wetlands. Most of the material we found relate to lake, water, river, freshwater wetlands, and there really isn't much science in regards to tidal wetlands that we pulled up. There are numerous states that were permitting a rating system, which if a property had certain characteristics, they would be more susceptible to restrictions, and if they didn't, if they were less, then they would be having an easier standard to getting through. We were proposing keeping the adjacent regulated area, and this is unanimous amongst the 5 planning board members, after doing this deep dive into scientific research and creating a rating system where, say, a bulkheaded flat property that has turf grass right up to the bulkhead could be looked at a little differently than an unbulkheaded steep property with existing extensive wetlands on it. So I just want to keep it open-minded that there is, instead of this uniform 100 linear foot based on a good field number, there is a scientific basis that we could develop. And if the town board is willing to consider a rating system for the ARA instead of this 100-foot band, a ban on construction, we would do a deeper dive into it and give you some examples and come up with some basic ideas. We do think that it would be great if the town hired, even just in this preliminary level, environmentals to guide through such a plan. Again, because of the limited information that we unearthed, we contacted the EPA, we contacted the DEC in various regions, and even they were not able to give us a lot in tidal wetlands. So we have an environmentalist who is familiar with tidal wetlands, who has more experience and may know the better literature out there that can point us. I think that'd be very helpful in this process.
I'm going to share the letter that you sent with the rest of the town board.
Thank you, please do, thank you. We spent a lot of time on this.
We have a good amount of research.
All right, so then we will send this back to the subcommittee, so it won't be on for next week. You all will tell me when it's ready to come back on.
Okay.
I'm going to shift the order of the next agenda item to the mandating IA systems, because Judith is here to, Howard, you had one last.
Just one question. When is the next committee meeting scheduled?
We haven't scheduled one yet.
Yeah, you'll work that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna put mandating IA septic systems upon property transfer, because Judith is here to just speak to us about the LLC factor, and you have a hard stop at 3 p.m., I understand.
So I am recusing myself from this topic.
So just to preface this, and we also have Reeve Karen on, I believe, or did Reeve leave? Oh, he's still on, okay, good. With some of the, let me just, Get some papers around here. Part of our discussion, when we last picked this up, was on LLCs and whether or not we impose IA systems upon transfers from a current owner to an LLC, and you had some thoughts to share with us.
Yeah, so a lot of people, from what information I've been receiving from taxpayers who've transferred their property from their name to their LLC, is usually to protect their property from a number of different things, whether it be just regular liabilities or personal, personal assets, you know, keeping assets separate from their personal, you know, and assets, personal assets versus their LLC assets, just keeping things separate. And I want to say in the past couple of years, this year so far, we've had 12 transfers from their names to their LLCs. In 2023, there were 23 total transfers from their name to their LLC. And in 2022, there were 11 transfers from their name to their LLC. So it's not a great number, but it's, you know, a decent amount. But to put it in perspective, in 2023, we had 193 sales total for the year. And then in 2022, there were 206. So.
Do you have the number of how many of those started out in LLCs as opposed to being transferred from personal ownership to an LLC?
These ones are all just personal ownership to an LLC. I don't have the information of LLC to another LLC. Is that what you're asking?
Oh, no, just the initial acquisition was in an LLC, not in a personal name and then being transferred from there.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
I don't have that. But then to put it in a perspective too, of the trust, we've had so far for 2024, there's been 12 transferred to a trust, 47 for 2023 put into a trust, and in 2022 also 47. So more people are putting their properties in trusts than they are LLCs. So, but most people are just doing it to protect themselves and protect their assets. So I don't think that, personally, I don't think that spending a couple $100 on creating an LLC and putting that into putting your house into your LLC should justify spending money on septic funds. That's just my personal belief, but that would be up to you guys to really make that judgment whether you think that's worthwhile.
A question that I have, and my concern is that someone puts the property into an LLC and then they sell the LLC instead of selling the underlying land, you know, and house asset. So I don't know if that's something that you can.
You don't get notice of that. No, but when LLC transfers through business entity, we don't notify if there's a new owner of that LLC. You won't get notification of that.
So that'll be even more rare now. No one's gonna take on the liability of someone else's LLC unless they have to.
But the deed would also have to be changed ultimately, so if you buy that LLC, the deed is what controls. The deed that's filed in the county clerk.
But the deed
won't
would
change.
still be in LLC's name.
If you buy the interest in the LLC, the deed won't change, but no one's gonna do that.
Correct, but if you transfer it into a new LLC.
Oh, no,
One
no.
LLC owns it.
No, we're talking about just.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like to get around having to put in an IA system, like I'm just gonna sell the LLC with the assets in it. So, but I'm wondering if like maybe the tax receiver would see a name, you know, change in the address, the mailing address?
Well, we see those come through our office. But I don't see, that never happens.
No, but we also
We
have,
never see that.
yeah.
And no one's gonna.
The prices we're
take
talking
on-
about, nobody's gonna try to game the system for $30,000.
Yeah,
I'm just-
and take those additional liabilities.
I'm just looking at this, like if we put it in as an exclusion, I just don't wanna lose like a whole huge number, you know.
I agree, and the whole idea is to get them in the ground.
Right, exactly. But if it's not really something that's happening, then I don't want to put a burden on somebody who's just.
We could also ask for proof and see the operating agreement for the new LLC. And if it's legitimately Amber Rock Williams to ABW LLC, and you're the sole member as shown in the operating agreement, then you should be able to fall within that exception, because there's proof.
Mhm, right, and that's what we've got written in this
Yeah,
draft currently,
yeah,
is where the
exception
current owner would be the
says-
sole member.
Yeah, so we can ask for that operating agreement.
We already request trust.
The question is, what happens after that? After that transaction happens, what about the next transaction?
You review that operating agreement, and if it's,
But you're not
if it's
gonna know.
ABW LLC,
You're not
oh, we don't
gonna
know that.
Right,
You're not
yeah,
gonna know that.
yeah,
But
that's.
it's
but
not gonna,
again,
it's not gonna happen.
It sounds like, yeah, we're trying to legislate like,
Yeah.
that, like it's such a small subset that we aren't losing that many transfers. That's what I was getting
Yeah.
to.
Okay,
That's-
I think we're totally
I
there,
wanted to
because
get comfortable.
that
with
second transaction is,
It's not happening.
it's not happening.
Yeah, that's not just, I just wanted to get there. And so-
You just tip your cap to that.
There's only been a handful in the last couple of years. So,
Reed, did you have anything to say on this?
The only thing I said was something that I was discussing with Judith earlier, which is that it seems to me that there should be something in there that just requires notification of the town of any change in ownership within a certain period of time, say 6 months, that any transfer of property, the buyer is obligated to notify the assessor's office of that transfer. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to keep track of these things. It's still, we won't get 100% of them, but at least the onus is on the buyer, and we have evidence that there's like an obligation that they had an obligation to notify us, and it allows us to sort of more firmly regulate the that 3-year window they have. Does that make sense?
Different approach.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, I guess that's a question is how do you get notified? It comes from the county?
it comes from the county. The county sends us the deeds monthly, and the deeds take a while to be processed through the county. So our wait time is anywhere between, we're lucky if we get it 2 months after the date, but usually it's 4 to 6 months in all reality.
But I think the way we have this written, it's the date of the sale. So even if we don't know about it for 4 to 6 months,
Retroactive.
the clock is already
Ticking,
ticking.
yes.
So
And
does that matter? I mean, I'm just, Reed, to your point, do we need to put another thing on somebody which they're not really gonna know about anyway?
No, maybe not. I was under the impression, because it seems like very often, at least the building department doesn't have any record of, a transfer. And I may have misunderstood, but I thought Judith was saying that
Instead of putting this on the town, let's put it on the lawyers. I mean, I'm against deed restrictions. That's just, I feel they're nothing but a horrible encumbrance. But when these properties are transferred into an LLC and there's a new deed, alongside the deed, we can file a document that is a notice of the obligation. And if the LLC, if the assets and liabilities of the LLC are sold at a later date, which would be crazy for anybody to buy that, but if they did, the lawyer on the acquisition side of that transaction is going to do a title search. They're going to find this document, and the document is going to say that IA system is required before X date, and it'll be on the lawyers.
I like that.
that's basically what I was proposing.
Yeah.
That there's some obligation of notification, that's all.
Yeah, nobody
But
means
if you put it in the land records and it gets tripped up in a title search, then it'll get enforced.
Or that's fine, as long, but just as if I'm not a lawyer, you are. I just I didn't want it in deeds and covenants because I think that's
Nah.
not.
The problem with it putting it in the deed is, okay, say you put in the IA system and it's satisfied.
Right.
Then you have to refile the deed and do a deal with the
Yes.
mortgagor.
Yeah, I think it's unreasonable. Yeah,
It's an absolute nightmare.
yeah.
Absolute nightmare. It's really easy for the town to pull this, let's call it a lien, even though it's not really a lien, to rescind the lien. Because if it comes up in the title and says, hey, you're supposed to put this IA system in, within 5 years, and it's year 4, you can say, I did that already. Here are all the documents. And then it goes away. Then the title company will insure over it, and it'll hopefully get removed.
How mechanically are you proposing to do this, though?
That's,
One document.
No, when?
Oh, when?
No, like, I'm just saying, logistically, walk me through it, I'm not sure.
Oh, sure.
How does that get triggered essentially?
Well, even with any transaction, be it just if a person is buying a piece of property and they have to put in this IA system, or they're transferring it to their LLC or to their whoever, when that new deed is recorded from the individual to the LLC, a side document is also recorded saying, under town code, you are required to put in an IA system before 2029.
but we were accepting those.
That's true, we are, but.
Muddying the
Yeah,
waters.
we
Okay.
can work on something.
We can figure it out, because where we're not exempting is if they then sell the LLC after that initial transaction. So when that new deed is recorded, the document will say, if.
And also if they're buying the LLC, there would be a monetary transfer.
Yeah,
So an LLC, from your name to an LLC, there's usually no monetary transfer.
No, if they're
So-
buying the LLC, they don't have to do a new, because the deed is running with the LLC.
but whoever is representing the person buying the assets and liabilities of the LLC is gonna do a title search on the assets, the asset being the house. And this document will get kicked up in the title search.
How does the document get affixed? How does the lien get affixed to the?
It's recorded in the land records.
But who's doing it and when?
Well, we do it when an initial transfer from the individual to the LLC, you have to record a new deed, you record this document alongside.
Well, let's use an easier example. So just a arm's length, bona fide real estate transaction. I sell my house to Albert. He has 3 years from the date of closing to put an IA system in, right? So when in this process does that piece of paper and who puts it into the chain of title in the county clerk's office?
It'll be required on that initial change of title on that new deed. And this document has to be recorded along with it. We can put that in.
But it's already, we're not
So
gonna know until the deed is sent 6 months later from the county clerk's office that even that transaction occurred.
Well, we put it in the code, the lawyers, in the transaction, know of the requirement.
And not get,
Yeah.
good luck with that.
Well, we're
I
not
was
gonna
say,
find out
except,
till
yeah, So
later.
if someone's using a New York City lawyer who isn't familiar with shelter and code to close on property purchase. And also,
I think
is this something that the county clerk's office accepts, this extra piece of paper? Or are they gonna be like, what is this? This isn't part of.
No,
They'll record it.
Yeah, I mean,
As long as the parties agree, they're gonna, if it's part of the code, they're gonna
It's
record it.
Liz Pendant, so similar to Liz Pendant's, but I don't know.
It's almost a lien, well, Liz Pendant's is a lawsuit.
I don't.
But again, I think we're creating all this for a minority of, like a small minority of it.
No, I mean, it's for everybody.
It's actually for,
I don't know about that. See, but if somebody buys a house and then they decide to sell it in 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever, how do we know? How are we gonna, who's gonna track that? To know that the IA system wasn't installed? And really, the new owner, the purchaser really needs to know that.
this is how you do it. And it's not for the transfer to an LLC within a family. It's really for the regular transaction.
No, I know, but I'm saying, I sold my house to Albert.
Yeah.
We close, the clock is ticking, he has 3 years to put the IA system in.
Who's tracking, who's tracking
I
me?
want something, this is where.
When the deed now from the county goes to Judith sends it over to Reed.
And I'm hoping Reed can find a place in Municity to
Correct.
kind of make this an open building permit or something, you know, some sort of.
Yeah, you put a ticker on it that,
We would have to figure out some, some sort of alarm in the Municity system or something that kicks up, hey,
yeah, like
it's March
maybe a year
34th.
before,
March
hey, you got a
34th,
year
it's-
left,
Yeah, right.
make sure you put it in, otherwise you're gonna get a notice violation or violation. But yeah, so Judith, you get 99%, 100% of the deeds, right?
Yes, yes.
So she ultimately gets deeds.
Yes.
Okay, that's all, just some way to track it, that's
All of
all.
the deeds, it's just a matter of the
Yeah.
timing of it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then she'll work with Reed and we'll figure it.
I may have been suggesting something too cumbersome. As long as I wasn't aware that Judith always got the deed, the new deed within 6 months. As long as we get that at some point within the 3 years, the onus is on the buyer to do it. And there's no reason to burden everybody with more, more paperwork that's not necessary. The bottom line is, as long as we find out, we can, make people put.
But we have to build an internal system with
Yeah.
ticklers and trips.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I offer an idea?
No. Not taking public comment, because this is going to legislation, but please send us an email or come in and talk to me. No, this is something that has legislation, so we are not
We're
doing.
hashing it out right now. We're just trying to figure it out amongst ourselves, but
So what's the harm from somebody voicing an idea?
Because we have a public hearing section for this. I'm sticking to the policies that we've put in place this year.
What's the town resolution?
We will continue to talk about it, and please, this is not, we're not gonna be done with this today.
no, Steve and I are gonna have another conversation.
Exactly.
Exactly, so please just send something via email or come in and talk to one of us or call. I did have another question on, Reed, you were going to look at existing non-conforming septic system as determined by Suffolk County Department of Health. I would like that's all we have is an expansion for renovation, that it has to be upgraded. We wanted to get better language on what exactly qualifies as a non-conforming septic system. So I had a note that you could speak to this or work on this for us.
Right, I mean, a non-conforming system would just be one that predates the 1973 requirement for approval. And that for one reason or another, expansion that had taken place and wasn't tracked properly, but for some reason does not meet the current sanitary code. Like, in other words, it wouldn't, how can I put this? They have certain requirements for system sizing. As long as it was sized properly, effectively, then it would be compliant. But if you have an old block system, that's not gonna be a compliant system.
Or the green stamp, if there's a green stamp for a 3-bedroom, but there's a bedroom added,
Well,
the system has to be upgraded.
well, the only thing is that up until surprisingly late, they didn't put a number on it. But if it was just the de facto 4-bedroom system. So basically the default is 4-bedroom, but it may or may not say that on the green stamp survey. They started sort of doing it, I believe, in about 1984, but they weren't consistent about it until really, 2000 or so.
Well, we already have something, section, yeah. 4310.4 3A speaks to non-conforming septic system as determined by Suffolk County Department of Health. We also have a section where if you increase, and B is if you increase your SFLA by 25%. C is if you increase the number of bedroom counts allowable by previously issued Department of Health system. So I just was going through the Suffolk County Sanitary Code, trying to find out what exactly is the definition of a non-conforming septic system. And I wasn't finding one. I found failed system. I couldn't find anything that just said non-conforming. So I just wanted to have a place to go to say this is what it is, or why don't we just put it in our code?
A block system, cesspool, cesspit block. You could add the language.
Well, I would maybe go further than that, Albert, and just say you could say any system that was not approved by Suffolk County, and that would get all of the block systems, but it would also get any system that was put in before 1973, which would pretty much be not inevitably, but almost inevitably a substandard system.
I think that's what this language means, a non-conforming septic system. Like, it's not really a term of art. It's something that if the Suffolk County Department of Health says it's no good.
Well, what they do is that if you have a system that predates, whatever it is, I think it's August something of 73, you have to get it certified. And what happens is somebody goes out and they, an engineer goes out and they open it up and they check the sizing of it and they verify that it's, legitimate system, not a block system, and that it's sized appropriately for the number of bedrooms. And if it is, they certify it, and then it's accepted as compliant by Suffolk County Department of Health. At least that's my understanding of how that process works.
So I was thinking we'd be tightening it up if we went with has an existing septic system not previously approved by Suffolk County Department of Health.
Yeah, in other words,
that would take out the ability for them to get that one certified if it was predating 1973. Yes. They would just have to replace it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Albert, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think it tightens it up more.
Sure.
It captures more.
What did you say again? Has
an existing septic system not previously approved by Suffolk County Department of Health. That's services.
But what if it was previously approved and now it's no longer one that they would approve?
Well, then it would get picked up with the other.
That's a little tricky too, because I believe they originally had a slightly smaller size requirement for 4-bedroom house. Not significantly, but slightly. So you don't want to make people that have a system that might be 100 gallons less than what they would be required today have to redo their whole septic system. I mean, maybe you do, I don't know, but it seems a little bit draconian. If they, in other words, they approved systems in, say, 1978 that they wouldn't approve today. So that's the only danger of that language, it seems to me.
Oh, how tight do we want to make it?
What's that?
How tight do we want to make it?
But again, I like the generality of a non-conforming septic system as determined by because then we put the onus on that determination on the Department of Health and not us. And if it's an existing that's not conforming, like say one again that was previously approved 30 years ago, but now would not pass muster, it's a non-conforming septic system.
Because I just get stuck on how do you define non-conforming?
No, but that's the great thing about it. We don't have to. It's just because Suffolk County Department of Health makes that determination.
So then it's
This is
an
one
extra
more.
step.
It's okay to punt it.
Okay. What do you think, Albert?
Yeah, sure.
Fine?
Non-conforming or non-compliant, whatever, same meaning.
So procedurally, Reed, when you get a building permit, when do you ask for Suffolk County Department of Health intervention on the septic system?
Well, they would have to supply something when they're required to have something from Suffolk County, either saying that it's compliant or, green stamp survey or some sort of approval from an engineer.
So if it's a major renovation, someone comes in with a building permit for a major renovation, but not increasing the number of bedrooms and not increasing the SFLA by 25%, but doing like a whole makeover.
Right. Well,
Do you ask for Department of Health approval for the system that's currently servicing it?
Well, if it predates 1973, when Suffolk County started requiring permits, we would require, we would require a certification by an engineer that meets the current requirements.
And when would you kick it to make, have Department of Health approval? When would you require that you have the green stamp, red stamp approvals? Is that for new construction or?
It's for new construction, or if you add a bedroom that's over whatever the baseline is, the 4-bedroom system, the default minimum system from that period. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in this particular case, it'll get picked up on the bedroom one.
Yeah,
Have to require the mandate.
We've had ones where people we had one a while ago where somebody added an extension to a bedroom to put in a larger make the bedroom larger and put in a bathroom. At the time, people in the office wanted to send them and make them, it was a system that predated the 1973 start date for Suffolk County approvals. So it was a decent system, but somebody wanted to make them go to Suffolk County Department of Health and go through the whole approval process. Suffolk County doesn't require it for an expansion. If they were adding a bedroom, then they would, I believe they would have to do it, Suffolk County would have to do it. But we, in this case, made them get it certified. The engineer certified that it was up to the task of doing a 4-bedroom house. So they did not have to go through the entire Suffolk County approval process.
Okay, so in other words, I'm just trying to find an example of A. Because we know it's easy enough when a building permit comes in and you increase the SFLA by 25%, you just won the prize, you got to put in an IA system. You're increasing the number of bedrooms that exceeds the allowable authorized by a permit previously issued by the, easy enough, you won the prize, you got to put in an IA system. But what's an example of A? That you want to do a renovation to a single family residence, and it has an existing non-conforming septic system as determined by Suffolk County Department of Health Services. So when would you scrutinize a project that doesn't fall into the other two?
If they were adding a bedroom, then, or if when it was certified, it was a block system, then they would have to put in a new system.
Are you getting tripped up by determined? Does it change if you say as defined?
No, I'm not getting tripped up. I'm just saying we have a trigger for an IA system and it's 3A. I just want an example.
So is this a non-permanent system?
Because you have to be renovating your house and you walk into the building department. How is he going to know that the existing non-conforming septic, it has a non-conforming septic system if you're not increasing the bedrooms or increasing the S?
The Suffolk County Department of Health Services has a definition of a non-conforming.
No, but I'm
I
asking,
couldn't find one.
no. I'm asking Reed as the building inspector,
But
in
you- I
that
mean-
particular situation, would you even ask for that information?
No, we would not ask for it if they were not expanding the bedroom count.
So A is covered with B.
If we had no records of any system, then we would ask for a certification. And that's when they would determine whether it had an old block system that would have to be replaced.
Okay, so that's the answer. If there's nothing on file regarding the septic system and you ask for a certification and what's in the ground is not conforming as per Suffolk County Department of Health Service, then we would require an IA system.
Yes. Right.
I still think you should get rid of determined, because determined seems to imply that Suffolk County came out, took a look, and made a declaration.
No, they determine it just based on paper. So whatever's submitted
Somebody would have to inspect the system.
at the end. So in the beginning, they just look at the paper, what's in the ground or what's proposed. They don't have to come out. Excuse me.
I have one more comment on needs to. Hurry up. Not to make this conversation even longer and more complicated. I figured out what I was thinking about with the list of who things can be transferred to. Spouse, child, sibling, that was all on my list. Only thing that was not on here that was in my list was stepchildren. I don't know if we want to go that far with it.
I think child encompasses stepchild. Yeah, I think child is stepchild's a child. It doesn't say blood.
Okay. I don't know. But the other thing is, when you put something into a trust, you don't do it just to benefit a child or a grandchild. You can form a trust to benefit your spouse.
Oh, yeah, I have that. I added that last time.
Okay. And any of these other things. So you can put it in trust to benefit. Well, the problem is you get away from. You don't want this to be a mechanism to get around.
Yeah.
So,
That's why we keep it strict.
okay, fine.
And we could put in or stepchild if that's.
If something tells us that child includes stepchildren, like, sure. But
Yeah, no, I think for clarity for future town boards or future building departments, they'll know that stepchild is a child.
call it Cinderella rule.
So you will get this cleaned up,
Yes.
give us another draft for next week. Take a look at it. Public, please send us comments. And then we'll set the hearing at the July 15th meeting and have the public hearing August 6th.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. That's it. Thank you, Reed. And we
Need
can bring
Meg.
Meg back.
Oh, man.
Trying to think, I don't. The WQI delineation, I know there's certain rules that you're not eligible for funding
Yes,
that will follow.
yes. And that's not part of this legislation, but we do have to discuss the procedures under which they can give grants. So once we move this along, then I'd like to put that on for discussion. And I have all the policies and procedures, like our flow charts and all that good stuff. So,
Or should that be done simultaneously,
what else?
concurrently, whatever?
It's actually not part of the legislation, it's just part of the funding policy and restrictions.
Okay,
So we can address it separately.
okay.
Because, I mean, I'd like to address it as we go along because we may, like, if we come to the conclusion, like, we're not going to allow funding for any of these, maybe I'll vote differently on the legislation. So
Okay.
So
All right.
we'll do it concurrently, but it's not part of this draft. So back to Proportionality. So last week, we didn't really get to the chart because we got caught up with should we even be going forward with this law, whether or not, and I'd like Stephen here, just in case we wade into areas we're not supposed to wade into, but right now, I think, Albert, you had said you didn't want to go forward with this because you didn't think that we
I
should.
don't think we should go forward with it because it constitutes zoning changes before the comp plan.
We've done zoning changes with the pyramid law. So
That should be reviewed too.
we should repeal the pyramid law.
I didn't say that, but.
What did I miss? Reviewing things?
We're starting.
Yeah, just pyramid.
Yeah, just Albert doesn't want to move forward with proportionality because he doesn't think we should do any zoning changes before we finish the comp plan. But then I said, well, we've just passed pyramid law, which was a zoning change.
I mean, I like this law. I'm not happy about speaking against it, but it is a big change, and it is part, last time I saw the comp plan, this was kind of in there, it was called for this.
Mhm.
And we haven't seen the new comp plan, and we don't know how this fits into that puzzle. I mean, I'd like to at least be somewhere down the road on discussing the comp plan before we consider this, but this is Albert, this is your thing, you speak for it.
What's that?
You speak for it, this is kind of your thing.
No, I just think, I think we need to see the comp plan and review the comp plan before we continue with any zoning changes.
I feel like this is part of what when we moved this to zoning board, this is one of the arrows in the quiver as far as trying to, contain the large home sizes. I'd like to see this continue to move forward, and move it to a public hearing, and then we can invite the public in for the discussion on this and see what we want to do with it once.
I think this impacts too many lots on Shelter Island, frankly, and I don't have the planning expertise to really look at the ramifications of what we're doing. I really don't. I'm not comfortable with it.
That's the other thing, a little advice would be nice, I mean, none of us are planning experts.
Should we bring somebody in to do something on this then? To make
I
us
think so.
feel more comfortable?
I would be much more comfortable. Especially, and like I said, it's hard to do something like this without environmental look as well. But bringing someone in to advise us on this, not that you're not a land use expert, Stephen, but this is another person, would be helpful.
So I mean, I did design this originally to have minimal impact on the existing lots, to create minimal nonconformity in the beginning. And then you guys kept dialing it down, and causing more and more nonconformity and taking more and more value from people's property. So, actually, I don't go with any of the things that are on these charts. I think that it doesn't actually look at existing conditions and take that into account. And, in some instances, I do agree with Kim Nolan in her email. So, I think that if the object of this was to create the maximum allowed per that acre, then, these charts that have 2,000 or 1,900 don't do that. That's what you'd like to see your average be, or your, if that's not the intention of this. I mean, most of the people aren't going to naturally build to these sizes. Like right now, everybody can build up to 6,000 square feet. And do they? No, they don't, because that's not what they want. It's not what suits their property. It's just to manage the extremes. So the original proposal was just to manage the extreme cases, extreme scenarios. So, you know, as people have gone through this and come back with lower and lower and smaller numbers, it has created a problem. So, you know, the original objective was just to manage extremes. So I would say either we go back to larger numbers that just manage extremes, or come up with something else. But I do think we need to give the ZBA some kind of guideline. Right now, all we've got is, hey guys, nothing bigger than 6,000 square feet, have fun. That's literally all we have. So, you know, you have people already complaining about a proposed construction in Ram Island that's 5,998 square feet on an acre. So do we want to allow that, or do we want to come up with something that sets a benchmark for extremely large things on, you know, things that are oversized for what their given lot is? So, I mean, I think that you have to look at it from a different direction.
I mean, I was heading towards smaller and more restrictive, but if the objection is it is creating too much nonconformity.
That's not my objection. I think a non-conforming argument is.
I think she's referring to the community.
Yeah, I was just, yeah, we got a letter today that I read through. That, you know, although to some extent, I also think one side of the argument was that it devalues properties because they can't build any bigger, but then you've already got existing houses that are in excess of this. So I would think that those houses suddenly got more valuable because we do have a 5,000 square foot house on a 1.5 acre parcel or whatever part we pick. So
It's hard to do it, it's just hard to do it in the dark a little bit because we haven't seen the comp plan, we haven't done a GEIS. Can we put this through, subject to coming back after the GIS and tweaking it?
This isn't gonna impact the GIS.
I was gonna say, if we do something.
Well, it's a zoning change
Yeah.
that is a good argument for doing a GEIS.
But it wouldn't have a
of the comp
negative environmental impact.
plan.
Reducing
Yeah,
density will not have a negative
That's true.
environmental
Well,
impact.
does it?
I don't want to interfere with doing a GEIS, that's all. It's a serious zoning change. With implications that I don't think we fully understand.
Okay.
I would be ready to move forward with this, but we need 3 of us.
Well, we also need to be able to pick a schedule that we're gonna
Yeah,
put into
exactly.
the code,
So
so.
I'm just
If
even
two
like
won't
move
even
forward.
move forward,
I'm just
then-
thinking, I'm starting with, can we even move forward?
I think you should start with, let's pick the schedule, and then, because we should at least spend another week thinking about this and talking about it. So let's pick the schedule, so we have a complete piece of legislation to consider,
Okay,
and go from there.
which schedule?
I'll make a motion.
We already picked the schedule.
Well, no, we had Meg's, we had mine, we had Albert's, and then I had, like, last week, just said the 4% plus 1,500 square feet.
Yeah, we
was-
like that.
Yeah, so
No.
it was the most restrictive on the smaller lots, which would impact the heights the most.
But the heights is
But
already
it
built
doesn't
out.
impact the heights the most, it impacts the C zone that are sub 1 acre lots. That's what it impacts the most. The impact in the heights is the less than a quarter acre. That's all heights. There's like no less than a quarter acre in the rest of
And
the
there's
town.
not an empty quarter acre in the heights to build on. I mean, they're already built out, and you're talking about someone who
Right.
buys one of those houses and wants to expand it, and, you know, frankly, that should go to zoning board.
They're gonna go anyways, because
Yeah.
they don't meet the specs.
So
Yeah.
so that nonconformity doesn't count.
So if we're looking at the 3 proposals for less than an acre, then like 0.95, Meg had 3,900, I originally had 3,400, Albert would have 2,500, and my formula was 3,155.
I like the formula. It seemed to be a good compromise. It ended up kind of in the middle. It did flatten out at the top.
Yeah, it did.
but
Okay,
I
so
don't,
we got a Ben one there.
I would prefer that it starts at 3,000 and ends at 6,000 at 2 acres.
Say that again?
That it starts at 3,000 and ends at 6,000 at 2 acres, so down there.
Okay, so that's not even what we have.
we're talking about 6,000 at 3 acres.
Well, let's see. We had, Meg's was 6,000 and mine was 6,000 at 3 acres. Albert's was 6,000 at 3 acres and the formula was 6,000 at 2.6 acres.
And Albert was 20, at 1 acre was 20,
At 1 acre was 3,000 square feet. Back to when Meg had done the non-conformity. Non-conformity was 122 with yours, mine was 236. And Albert's, but we had that, we gradiated his, and that was 334. So least non-conformity is Meg's.
Albert, how do you feel about Amber's schedule?
I don't want to move forward with that.
Okay.
It's up to the
That's
three
really
of
give
us.
us a piece to think about
I
for.
think it's a mistake to move forward.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. So we need 3 for the formula. We've definitely got some formula right now.
Not 4%.
But you will support.
I don't know, I'm doing some math.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you're playing with numbers here and you really don't know the ramifications of what you're doing moving forward with, I believe. That's where I am. I don't feel comfortable moving forward at all with numbers.
Like something is better than nothing, and then it can always be revisited.
Like-
When we do.
Yeah, I mean, I did look at the numbers. I put in a lot of time looking at the numbers. I sent everybody a spreadsheet that has all of the numbers available.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like we can make a fair, intelligent decision and move forward.
5% starts us off at 2,045 square feet at 0.25 acres. And it hits at a half acre, 2589. At a full acre, it hits at 3678, which is in between Meg's and mine, or what we originally put in. Albert had 3,000. We hit 6,000 at 2 acres, basically.
Yeah. That's too big for 2 acre lot.
That's too big for a 2 acre lot.
But that's just,
Why don't you've talked about a planner coming in,
Mhm.
someone who has expertise. Why don't you, because again, it seems it's subjective at this point. And I know you jumped into the numbers and you have some empirical data.
I'm trying
But
to
I-
base my benchmarks off of the numbers.
No, absolutely, but I think, having a planner come in and as a sounding board for the town board might be helpful in this particular scenario.
I think that's true.
Before we present something to the public, if you have enough votes to do so.
I would agree with that.
Okay, let's go that route then.
We have to find a planner.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We'll task you with getting.
Yeah, I'll reach out to the other townships and see. So there's also, planners that might moonlight from other municipalities and come in to help us out.
So go ahead.
I'd like to have the comp plan along with this in the planner.
That would be nice. So you gave it to BSJ?
Yes.
And
They're fixing it and sending it back, but I haven't received it yet.
did they give you a date?
Hopefully this week. They didn't give me a specific date, but hopefully this week.
Okay. All right, that's good.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we're on
Okay.
to board member reports. I was gonna say, anybody want to start? I got a couple of things.
You know.
Okay. 10K went off successfully last week. You know, each year it just gets better and better. So thank you to the police department, the highway department, the volunteers for the 10K. Which I'm missing somebody, but we did a debrief today and had very few comments about things that could be done better for next year. Cooling center, we had some high heats over the weekend, and just in emergency management services, we started to talk about the fact that the library is closed this week because they're trying to move from the building into their temporary space. They have been a cooling center in the past, but they will not have the capacity to do so going forward. So our senior center, which is open from 9 until 4, Monday through Friday, can be a cooling center for those who need to get out of the heat. So just, even if it's not a declared high heat period, if we have declared high heat periods, we are working on having staffing available to be able to open them up. So we'll put that on the website as needed when we can pull that into place. The library, I did go over there just to sort of see what's the new space going to look like, and it's bigger than anticipated. They will have room for a few people, but not the number of people that they've had in the past. So that's why we want to have the senior center, and if things continue to be bad and we need bigger spaces, we'll look to the community center as well, and possibly even this room when it's not in use as needed. And the last thing, the nutrition program, the home delivered meals are going, starting July 1st, are going from 3 delivered meals a week to 5 delivered meals a week. So we did get county approval on that. We've been working on that. The deliveries will still be 3 days a week, but on Mondays and Fridays, I believe, I'll have to double check with Kelly on the exact, I have it written down in the other room, but they'll deliver 2 meals. The refrigerated meals instead of hot meals that the county has allowed us to go to. The hot meals, people were generally leaving them out or just putting them straight into the refrigerator. So we have approval to do chilled meals, which then can be microwaved, and they are making sure that everyone who gets these delivered meals has the capacity to heat them up as needed and space them out according to how they are comfortable consuming. But that's really good news for those who need that service. And that's all that I had.
Okay. I have 2 things that came up very recently. So, for business on town property, we have one application. I just want to see if you guys want to move forward with it. And it is after the deadline, but this person didn't know that they needed a business on town property. They were having friends come together on the beach and they were exercising together, but it's technically a business on town property. So they were informed that they needed a permit for it. So they did submit an application. Is this something that we want to review and look at? It's for 1 day a week to do a small exercise group. So I'll put it on for next week if people are amenable to looking at it.
I think so.
Okay.
You can look at it, sure.
Okay. All right. So we'll put that on for next week. And then the Tuck Shop would like to come back on for another revision. They have more requests. So I'll put that on as well. John
Okay.
has some additional requests.
This is about the generators on the side and the 2 trucks.
Yeah, so we can go over it next week when Amber leaves the room. No.
And there's not a quorum.
Let's see, what else did we have? So last week, we had actually a lot going on. Juneteenth, there was a meeting at the library to go over the reporter and its potential future or no future. And so there's a little subgroup of people working together trying to come up with solutions to save the reporter. So if you're interested in being involved, contact Duff Wilson. He does actually have a town email address. It's kind of a personal thing for him, but I don't have his personal address. I'm not going to give it out, but it's on the website.
His personal email is as the chairman of the ethics board.
He's on the
So you can
ethics
Find
board.
it in the ethics. board
Yes,
Page.
The town email.
the town email for him is the ethics committee. Green Options met on Thursday and they were discussing the continuation of the ETIP grant, but also getting ready for the Green Expo at the end of August. It happens the same time as the craft fair. And so they're talking about getting new green vendors to come in and talk about things like heat pumps and solar, also incorporating and including more of the town committees and different organizations, letting them all have booths if they want them, you know, if the EMS wants a booth to, you know, let everybody know what they do. It's kind of like a townwide info session for people. So they're looking into that. We're also reaching out to other environmental groups all around the East End and seeing if they want to come and do presentations on certain topics. Then there was an irrigation discussion at the library Thursday night, which went very well. It was a nice open discussion talking about kind of what people want to see in an irrigation code, what their concerns are, what we already have sort of rough drafted in and what else we can do. So it was a really helpful, productive discussion. You know, it did kind of tangent off a few times into different things like septic systems and pools, but for the most part, it kind of stayed on track. And then other than 10K, that's what I have for last week.
The only thing I'd like to add is just a heads up for something really amazing that's going on in the island. Sylvester Manor has now opened an outdoor exhibition of sculptures, installations, and artistic expressions. I was there last weekend for a guided tour with the curator, but going forward, there is, on the Sylvester Manor app, there is a walking tour that is extremely detailed, but it is all East End artists and mostly Shelter Island artists. Probably maybe half or 40% are actually Shelter Island artists. And it's really, really amazing. And it's absolutely worth people's time. And it's a nice walk through the woods and through the fields because they are spread out all over about half of the property. So it's worth going to see.
We'll also have the fireworks application for next week too, to go over their outdoor assembly. So that's coming up. Fireworks are the 13th this year,
Yep.
Saturday the 13th.
And we'll need to do a special meeting to approve that one.
Yes.
They were waiting for DEC and other permits, which they're still waiting on, but we need to get this moving in order to approve it in time.
Yeah. I wonder if,
I have to go to bat again. I don't like the asterisk at all. I think it's counterproductive. I think it muzzles the public. Even though they can come in a hearing, but how many people did we have at a hearing last night?
We didn't have any hot topics.
We really didn't.
But I mean, but even that, even those were asterisks. Like everything gets asterisk now. People can't speak, and I think it's wrong, frankly. I don't know,
Speak at a public hearing, which is the appropriate venue.
but I would like to hear when we're talking about something. When we're talking about the wetlands today, I would have liked to have heard people give some input after we were through discussing it. I think it's valuable.
I would have.
How do we change this? How do we go through this? How do we change it? It was your decision, Amber, I guess, with the asterisk. I'm not in favor of it at all. I think it's a negative thing. I really do.
I'm halfway in the middle somewhere. I think we benefit from just having our conversation, but I do think there can be a public conversation after we have our conversation, where people can be limited in time and topic.
I think that would
Give
be,
them 3 minutes at the end of our meeting.
I think that would be a good thing, Ben.
But I think
Let people
it's
talk.
really beneficial for us to sit here and hammer some stuff out.
I mean,
I'm not arguing that, but after the topic discussion, have a 3-minute or 5-minute conversation. Let somebody come up and talk to the subject.
I mean, I would love for you to have finished presenting your concerns about the wetlands code. Instead, you just didn't. So then we're gonna go back to the subcommittee, have
We're
the
gonna
same
go,
discussion
that was
we
scheduled
already
anyway,
had.
Meg. I mean,
And
what,
then, but if we're already in the middle of the discussion and you already have more topics, why would you say, I'd rather hear from the public than finish what I have in front of me? I want to hear what you have to say, but then you're stopping yourself short.
you're
It's going
changing
to
the subject.
No,
You're
because,
changing the subject away from the asterisks and public discussion at the time. After we finish a discussion. Why are you so set on that, Amber? I don't understand.
Because that's how it should be, is the.
Other towns open it up during work session.
No, none.
I'm
I'm just telling you.
East Hampton does. They'll let topics come up on an open session,
Have to
in a
look.
work session.
I'm gonna do some research on that. I wanna do some research on that. I haven't had an opportunity to, because I was away for a couple of days.
I think in the middle, yeah, but I'm in the middle. This is-
Yeah.
I like the.
I mean, as a compromise, I think after we discuss a topic, to open it up for whatever, the 3-minute rule, whatever you want to do, and let people just talk. Make comments, give their opinion. They're here.
Also limits the pool of the public, because the
Right.
public that can come are only the people that could come during the day at a work session. So those are the people that would dominate the conversation, and the rest of the public,
Move it to 6
Oh,
well,
but they,
the rest of the public would have an opportunity to speak at an appropriate time in the evening when there's a public hearing.
I think there would be more input from the public.
People that are tired, there's people,
Right, let them speak
Move it
during
to
the work
6 p.m.
session and at
So you
the,
don't have excuse.
at the hearing, public hearing. I mean, your public hearing is typically one night. And if you can't make it that night, or you're not sure of what's being discussed, if you don't have an agenda item, you lose your opportunity.
We're reading all correspondence into the record now, which we didn't used to do. It's just like, oh, it's available if needed. But now like Amber reads it in, so everyone does have an opportunity. And
Meetings are also scheduled at the beginning of the year, throughout the year. So everyone knows when there is a public hearing and a town board meeting. If they would like to attend.
But I'm also not adverse to, we pick something up, then we have a public hearing, then we take it back. Like, very rarely, we had hearing applications yesterday where we have a public hearing and then we do the resolution. Historically, we've oftentimes had the resolution following the public hearing. So it's as if we weren't listening to the public hearings. So I want to bring things back and make sure, like, if we have to go at it a few times, that's not a bad thing.
that's the process. That's the process
Yeah.
it should be taking.
I just think the more opportunity that the public has to speak, the better the legislation can be. Because somebody might say something that says, you know what, that was a good idea. Let's incorporate that. But that delays it even further. Then we have to notify, and then we have to, it just pushes it out. If you want to get legislation done, it would be more productive to have input, I think.
it also get hijacked and stalled.
Well, it's also one of those
Sessions.
situations where if you're trying to determine what you want to put forth to the public and you have 24 cooks in your kitchen, you're going to have really bad soup. If you have 4 people who are dialing down and working together, taking the information that they're receiving from different members of the public and doing their job representing those members of the public who are giving them input at the table, then you can work together more efficiently to create a document that you can put forward to the public that they can reasonably respond to. But to have 24 people commenting on a draft before it's even ready to go to the public doesn't make sense. That's why we're here.
Doesn't make sense to you, Meg. Doesn't make sense
Albert,
to
people
you.
are supposed to talk to you, say, Albert, I want to see this in the resolution, in the legislation, and you come
You
to
know
the
that's
table
not
and-
how it works.
That is
It does
how it
to a
works.
degree,
I have
but
a whole bunch of people who reach out to me, Meg,
they
here,
do,
this is
they
what I
do.
want.
But I'm
And
saying
it's our
people,
job to put it forward.
okay, let's drop it. I think the argument, it's a waste of time. People come to the work session to hear, to speak, to say things. They always did. And now it's stopped. It's taken from them. They don't have that ability. They always came in if there was a topic that interested them or they had input and they came and spoke. That's all. And you stopped it.
They still have the opportunity, it's just at a different time.
I know.
Like you have an opportunity.
I was gonna say, I run the meeting, so.
Right. Pursuant to state law, it is the supervisor's prerogative. And come January, you'll have another town board member, and I'm sure you can revisit it, and you can have the conversation, but.
We can also discuss changing the time, the meetings, changing them all to evening meetings.
I mean, if you're gonna open it up to the public for everything, then it should all be evening meetings. But then we also have to have our staff working at night, so we're gonna have to change the hours of operation, or we have to give more overtime. So we have to calculate that into the decision. It's easier, I mean, it's bigger than just saying, well, we'll just have all our meetings at 6 p.m. There's more to look at.
Also, then I go back to, we either need more meetings to
Mhm.
cover the agendas. I mean, today we're finishing up early, it's gonna be 3:30 when we're done. But other days, we're here until 4, and then if we have executive session, we have different people coming in, legal or department heads, people, interviews, things like that, we're finishing later. So then something has to give. So we either do less or schedule more meetings to keep accomplishing what we're trying to do. So there's a trade-off there as well. For the moment,
So we'll think about it.
I want to research some more, a few work sessions I've gone to for other towns. There was no public comment at work sessions, it was always at the town board meetings.
You have a maximum of 4 speakers in 3 minutes.
But then how do you
That's what you choose.
Yeah.
First 4 sign up.
All right, you all wrestle in the middle, and whoever gets up first, talk.
That doesn't work.
I'll pick them.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Okay.
So, anyone would like to give a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?